think to start off with our host state, we'll start with Oregon.
Hi, my name's Chris Dumen. I'm the interim pavement quality materials engineer, and I got asked to put together this agency report. I called it a state report, and then I couldn't help but throw that little graphic up there for thinking about Oregon State. We had a good baseball year, and being a true Beaver fan, we kind of are forced to be pessimistic about football, so we'll just prepare for the worst and be happy with whatever comes our way. So, as we touched on this a little bit earlier today between John and Paul, but we have about 8,000 center line miles, 1,800 lane miles, 95% has asphalt surfacing. About 800 lane miles of concrete, most of that is continuously reinforced. We do, in our lower volume areas, have some oil mat. It was oil mat, now it's got 2, 3, 4 chip seals on top of it. It's never actually been paved. And then even in some of our real low volume areas, we do still have some gravel state highway. But it's been a while since I've actually been on any of those. With our pavement program, we're looking typically about $135 million a year. The bulk of that's going into single lift asphalt paving. This year we did have a large diamond grinding project on Interstate 84, 40, 50 lane miles. We'll probably be doing more of that going forward as we try to keep our concrete pavements in some of our mountain pass areas where they live very extremely difficult lives, and anything we can do to get a few more years out of them. But as you can see, like I said, it's single lift paving is the bulk of our program. But we do some reconstruction and multi-lift paving on an annual basis as well. Last year we did get large influx of funding, about $5 billion over 10 years, which correlates well to the one California had. They're about 50 billion, but they're about 10 times bigger than us. One advantage we have over them is ours is not going to the ballot in November. So, well, I think there's still some industry hiccups with the way they're doing the tax and delivery of projects. Nothing so severe that the whole thing could be thrown out that we're aware of. But we do project that to slow the rate of decline of our system. I don't think it's quite full funding. No one who manages any of these assets ever really has full funding, but it should slow the rate of decline. How that money gets divvied up between preservation and multimodal there's a whole bunch of different ways that money could get stretched, whether it's mega projects in our urban areas or improving our system. We'll kind of see as we go. It is a big deal, and it's worth mentioning several times because it's pretty exciting time for Oregon. Some of the challenges we face are, it's really driven our pavement program and our preservation program in the 90s and probably through about 2007 or 2008. We really did a lot of open graded wearing courses, which isn't a unique thing. A lot of agencies will do open graded wearing courses, but very few will have used 3/4 inch aggregate and placed it 2 to 3 inches deep. Yeah, we weren't really a leader on that. Maybe we were, but no one followed, thankfully. Didn't work out too well for us. So for the longer than I've been at ODOT, we've basically been removing those and replacing them to get our system back to dense graded wearing surfaces. It has limited a lot of our pavement preservation because we've had poor success chipping over the top of that. Earlier on, we'd chip it, but as we know with the water with this state, once we'd seal up over the top of that, we were way more prone to having that top layer fail, and then obviously the chip or whatever preservation technique you use can't succeed if the top base layer is gone. So ultimately, we've been, like I said, a lot of our projects mill and fill. It's just deciding how thick that stuff is so we can get rid of it. That's the light at the end of the tunnel. In case you're unsure, we are getting close. There's going to be a few more as we go on now. Most of the ones we're getting to now actually were decent performers because they're all at least 10 years old, some of them much older. But as we get back to a dense graded wearing surface, we'll probably be looking to expand a lot of our preservation techniques just because there will be more realistic tools in the toolbox. Not unrelated to that, since we've done a lot of mill and fill paving and our chip seals, microsurfacing, all that, we haven't done a whole lot of, so there's not a super large contractor presence here. If there's not the work, they can't be here. As we go forward and let them, we hope to build that industry up and generically just have more tools in the toolbox. A lot of our preservation work, our chip seals, will be done by paving contractors, and I mean, they're good contractors. They can pave well and they can chip well, but if their bread and butter is paving, the chip seals can kind of get pushed as the side work, which doesn't work so well for scheduling. As we know, chip seal gets pushed to late August, September, our chances of failure go way up, which, like we mentioned earlier too, 1 or 2 high profile failures can really create large problems. Another challenge, same for everyone, is as workforce ages, trying to keep the employee recruitment and retention so all that knowledge doesn't head for the door at the same time. So for quality, what we're trying to do with our knowledge bases that we have left is kind of get that a little bit centralized. If we've got someone really good in a maintenance office somewhere, we might send him over somewhere else while we're doing a chip project. Make sure that we have expert on site for all of our treatments. Over the years, a lot of our chip projects haven't been administered by our project offices. They've been administered by maintenance. So our project offices don't necessarily have people who are chip seal experts. So we want to make sure our talent and knowledge does get spread around so our projects do have the greatest chance of success. Combine that with some training. We do have a chip seal course. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We've looked at the national certification. It's something that we've considered. We haven't made that leap yet, but it's something we're considering between the chip, the micro slurry, and crack sealing certifications. We do have a chip seal training. It's a 1-day course we offer several times, 2 to 3 times a year. Focus will be the newer inspectors, but certainly we try to get everyone back in for a tune-up as well. Just going over the practical knowledge required to inspect these chip seals, understand what's going on. With our specs, shot rate for aggregate and typically emulsion, we do some hot chips, but it is ultimately the agency's decision, which puts a lot of risk on the agency. If it goes poorly, we can't just be like, well, someone else messed up. It's, well, we messed up. So try to give ourselves the best chance there that we can to succeed. The big one that, goes by itself is determine appropriate weather. You can't chip for 24 hours after it rains. Well, everyone knows that, but what happens, that might not be long enough. If it's 70 degrees, it's a lot different than if it's 90 degrees. So microsurfacing is something that we've used a couple times on STIP projects. We do have an interstate maintenance project that's going to go here maybe this month. We're pretty excited to find another way to stretch our dollars where it's appropriate, whether that's typically probably will be on our maintenance side, but I mean, that could be in our STIP projects too if we're using it at the right place at the right time. But we're limited on our microsurfacing. There's certainly cities that have done more lane miles than us, even within Oregon. Our specs, microsurfacing spec is basically an industry standard, but for our chip seals, it's pretty prescriptive, which puts a lot of the risk on the agency. So one thing that we're been working with different members of industry and academia on is trying to come up with a performance test for chip seals. Not necessarily a warranty, but after a year doing sand patch tests to make sure that we still have the friction properties we want. We were hoping to do that this year, but we didn't quite get there. There's just too many issues to work through. Obviously for contractors, how do you bid that if we're holding money back, or how do they, I got to make payroll. I tie up my bonding capacity on your incentive chip. I mean, some of those things we've got to find a way through. I would guess incentive will probably be how we ultimately get there if we do. That's my brief overview of Oregon.
Chris, you mentioned that sometimes you get pushed late in the season for chip seals. Do you have a mechanism to delay the project without losing the funding till the following year, rather than the risk of failure?
Yes, it's just whether or not we elect to do that. Obviously, if everyone would get together and come to agreement that it's too late in the year for this chip, then we can push projects. Last year, we had a kind of larger hot chip package that we did push some of it, or it had been pushed another year, but I think everyone's always going to be fighting that. Well, the weather looks kind of okay. I think we can get it in this week, but as long as our project management's on same page as our pavements unit, and I mean, if we follow our spec, we can push projects, but there's just always that push to get done and take higher risk. But we're certainly, pendulum's kind of gone the other way, and yeah, we will wait if we have to now.
Yeah, because later in the season, the risk of failure goes up exponentially.
Oh yeah.
And so you just don't want to take a chance if you're trying to move your program along.
Yeah, no, loud and clear on that one.
I was just going to add that ultimately the decision on whether late season chip seal occurs or not is really up to the project manager, and they consult the pavement group in that decision process, but it's their decision, and they're under a lot of pressure to get that project done. So we're not always in agreement with whether the thing should go forward, and that has been an issue before in the past.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.